Hi church, hope you've had a great start to the week. I just wanted to read tonight from James chapter 1, starting at verse 2. James writes, "My fellow believers, when it seems as though you are facing nothing but difficulties, see it as an invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that you can. For you know that when your faith is tested, it stirs up power within you to endure all things. And then, as your endurance grows, even stronger, it will release perfection into every part of your being until there is nothing missing and nothing lacking." We usually read that verse as count it all joy when you experience trials or tribulations. But I like the way this phrases it, when it seems as though you're facing nothing but difficulties, because sometimes there's some areas of our lives that feel like that, where you come up against obstacle after obstacle, and maybe in multiple areas of life, but and you just can't get over the hurdles. And I think especially around Christmas time, sometimes things can feel like they're a little more strained maybe, or a little more intense. But James writes that it is an invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that we can. And I think that's amazing. I think that we can experience the greatest joy in those times because it's actually the greatest opportunity that we have to be able to see the faithfulness of God in every situation. And when we see that and we experience His goodness, that brings us so much joy. In Nehemiah, it says that the joy of the Lord is our strength. So, we see the goodness of God, we experience His faithfulness, and we know that He's good all the time. And so we can have joy in those times. And the strength that we get from that joy helps us to be able to keep pushing through those times that seem hard, or are hard and are difficult times to get through. Verse 3 says, "For you know that when your faith is tested, it stirs up power within you to endure all things." When your faith is tested, it gets stronger. And that faith that gets stronger, it's not our power within us that gets stirred up for endurance. It's God's power within us, that as our faith is tested and it gets stronger in who He is, His power becomes more evident in our lives. And then verse 4, "As your endurance grows even stronger, it will release perfection into every part of your being until there is nothing missing and nothing lacking." I think two key words for that whole passage are joy and endurance. And to get through difficult times, we need both. We can't decide to just have a burst of joy. It's not going to last long. We need to have the joy with the endurance to be able to push through those hard times and then come out on the other side and be able to declare God's faithfulness. You also can't just go through on endurance, because otherwise you can endure something and be miserable about it. But when we have the joy of the Lord as well, it gives us strength for that endurance. So you can't have one without the other, but they feed each other as well. And just on that, in 2 Peter 1:3, it says, "His divine power," His obviously being God, "His divine power has given us everything that we need to experience life and to reflect God's true nature through the knowledge of the one who called us by His glory and virtue." Again, it's God's power. It's God's power in us that helps us to be able to get through life and respond the way that we need to be able to walk out what it's like to respond to life God's way, and to reflect His true nature, it says, to live out of the image of God that He put in us, so that others can see and others can give glory to God, and maybe come to experience Him in a way that they haven't before. So I hope that encourages you, and I pray that as you go into this week, you would just remember joy and endurance, that's how we get through times in our lives that seem that are harder, that are challenging, because it's God's power in you that gives you joy, that gives you strength, and by His power you'll make it through to the other side. Love you all. See ya.